I think we fixed the problem. Yep, I hear myself now. Alright, if people are still watching, we're gonna go ahead and get started now. The idea today's well, the project in general that we see here is we're gonna build a motorcycle, right? And we're starting with the engine. What we're gonna do is we'll build a transmission. I'm debating whether or not to put a chain drive on this as well. Now, a chain drive is going to make it more complex, but it's realistic. So, let's get started. The simple stuff first. I have a transmission in mind that's pretty simple and pretty easy, but as these things go, what what you can have in mind and what actually works aren't necessarily the same thing. I also definitely want to make a better throttle mechanic for this engine because right now it's basically just an on-off. You're either gunning it or not because it's laser operated. And it works, but it's not ideal. And the other thing is we don't have an ignition. An ignition could be easy. We could do that with the lasers as well, but a part of me was thinking about this and I want to make this I want to make all the controls on this operate from realistic controls, if that makes sense. So, like, you actually rotate the handle grip to increase the throttle, and the throttle actually has staged performance. So, like, if you just open it up a little bit, it only gives you a little bit extra power, versus if you open it all the way. You know, it's not just on-off like it is right now. That might be a little bit unnecessary. I could do it very easy as well and just keep it like it is. I was initially gonna try to make this a proper 4-stroke. Right now it's 2-stroke because simplicity, power, and having a full rotation without any power is gonna be problematic. So I say we get started on that transmission. So first things first, let me get rid of the clouds because they're annoying. And I hate them. So for starters, let's make ourselves a chassis for the gearbox. Let's start with just some simple gear ratios. Let's see how big these gears are. See if I can get it a little bit smaller. So let's say we have like a 16 tooth gear and we mesh it with an 8 tooth gear. So that's a 2-to-1 reduction, which gives us more torque but less actual output. We'll say that's first gear. Now I like to make the gears heavy. It's already low friction, but we'll just make it 0 just because. We have a program where we can make things ideal as such. Alright, that's good. So I was actually looking at a diagram of a it's USB. Sorry, so what I was saying is I was looking at a diagram of an actual transmission to a motorcycle, and it's very similar to the manual transmission of a car. and you have sliding dog clutches, and some of the like half of the gears are freewheeling, meaning that they don't actually individually put any power to the shaft. And it's by binding different gear ratios together that it produces the desired input and output. So what we're going to do is we're also going to add a 10-tooth gear and a 14. We'll make a 5-gear ratio, or a 5-gear box. So that was 16, 14, 12, 10, 8. Something about that feels off, because I think the 5th gear on a lot of actual Harleys, it's like, let's just say the highest gear is a 1-to-1. But at the same time, in this program, that may not be enough, right? So we'll do this anyway. So that's 3 different ratios. 4 and 5. Sorry if this part is a little bit slow, but it's the tedium of the sort of stuff you have to do with this program. Alright, perfect. So we've got this. Let's actually put them in order then. So they don't look right, but that's only because this is a 2D program. But similar colors will mesh. So we have the red, which will be our 1st gear. 2nd gear. 3rd gear. 4th gear. And 5th gear. Now these are all 1. That may not actually be a good thing. I'm trying to think, because I sort of had an idea earlier, and I'm gonna have to look at the visual again. I had an idea that was very similar to the realistic one. It just had some changes to it that made it realistic. Because if I remember correctly, the amount of gears that are actually present in a 5-speed sequential transmission for a motorcycle, there's only like 6 different geared pieces, not including the actual shafts, of course, because I think each one has its own stator shaft or stator gear. Some of the like the dog clutches are splined, but they themselves are gears of sorts. And let me go ahead and bring up an actual visual. If you search motorcycle transmission, it's right there first. So I'm actually gonna just take a screenshot of this, and I will drop it, but right into Algodoo like that. So if I remember the video, yeah, these are the pieces in red, except for this, are the dog clutches. And these actually, when you shift, will slide back and forth. So like this one will engage this gear. And these are splined to the shafts themselves. Whereas the blue gears, those are freewheeling, but don't slide at all. And so the way it works is, say this is the power, where the power is coming from, and we want to shift to first gear, we would have to slide this clutch in this way. That would be basically turning a small gear and a larger gear. That means more revolutions for the input shaft per rotation of the output shaft. And that's the sprocket for the chain right there. So what I have in mind is, instead of splining this to the shaft or something like that, what I would basically do is I would have a base circle, and that would be the so-called shaft. And some of these would be fixated to it, while others would be hinged to it. So like, let's say this gear is a dog clutch, and that'd be fixated to it, whereas some would just be hinged to it. I messed this up, hold on. So like, say this one is fixated to it, and this one is freewheeling. And I would have 2 of these in tandem. And what I would do is, instead of, because I can't really make this engage this gear like the dog clutches, because I can't slide it. There's nowhere for it to go. There is no in-out direction, you know. I only have 2 axes to work with. So what I was thinking instead is, I have a mediator gear like this, or like a bigger one to make it more reliable, but like half the size. And each of these has one of those. You'll see. Say like this. Now, if instead of needing to slide this piece somehow, I instead leverage another gear to mesh with both of these, what I can do is basically make a lock gear. And this lever I can shift later with like the gearing drum. So like, let's say, for example, boom, I wanted to motorize it. Ooh, actually I can make them the same collision group. If I make this all heavy enough. Is misbehaving, hold on. Let me try spring. Well, I guess it would appear that this kind of thing doesn't work. What I'm trying to do is get this to mesh with these two, because these share the same gearing ratio, or the same number of teeth and the same size. If something meshes with one, it meshes them both together. But another way I could do that, that's gonna be hard. So let's see if I do that. Now they're kind of forced to mesh together in a stretch of the word. Oh, was it just that that doesn't really fare well for us if the motor was too powerful? So if 100 Newton meters is too powerful for this, I'm sorry. It's just not going to work out. Okay. There's the circle itself. Try that. Hey, I think we might actually have something here. Boom. Now they're, if I slow this down, you'll see that they're meshed together. They're forced together of sorts. They have to be. There might be some slippage. Like there's a sort of synchronization effect where it won't fully engage until they're in sequence like that. All right, yeah, this is the idea I have for gear shifting, basically. Let me apply a brake of sorts here, just so that I can visualize this a little bit better. Oop. Let's not get the spring node of death. That will kill my program really quick. Let's make this collision group B. So yeah, that's how I would shift. So this would be biased to engage. Or like it would want to engage naturally, and the shifting drum would kind of impart pressure onto it that would push it out of engagement. And so when the shifting drum is rotated, the way it's selecting gears by allowing whichever arm it wanted to. to actually engage whatever gear. And it doesn't have to play much, just enough to mesh and unmesh with those gears like that. Very slight. Yeah. I'm reading the comments now. Yeah, you can add density and different physical properties to the shapes you're using. How long have we been going? 28 minutes? Alright, yeah, so that's the place to start, so to say. And we'll work with this diagram here and start there. So we can start with two shafts placed side by side, so to say. These will be our input and output. We'll create the gearbox, so to say. This will be the part everything's put onto. Input and output, just like so. And it looks like we start with a simple, relatively small gear. Actually downscale this by half. Looks like there's a simple small gear right here. Engaging a larger one. We can also go simple and start with a 4-gear transmission, which I think will start easier. I think that one's freewheeling. Yep, that's freewheeling. But this one is not. That is dark gray. So now if I've done this correctly. Oh, apparently that happens. Sorry, that can be fixed. Perfect. Freewheeling, no power exchange. So that is this guy right here. Now we will make another gear. Let's see, this one's like the second largest. I think we'll start with a simple 4-speed. Be mindful of the collision layers. So that's 2 gear ratios that we've made. So let's make a 1-to-1. No, we already made that size. Just saving real quick. And let's do 1 more gear ratio. Alright, so what we want to do, let's just make that red. Screw it. So what we want to do is add our series of clutching, or like binding gears now. And I want to do it in such a way where all this is going to fit behind this engine in a place where I can install a ratchet lever, like a bidirectional ratchet lever that would operate in a way where a realistic shifter could be placed. You know, so it's all kind of within realistic size. So remember, this is the output, this is the input. We need to bind. We need to be mindful and bind. Well, we need to actually bind everything together properly. I'm just kind of tired from the day. It's been a long day, and I'm trying to have the mental energy to do this, but I've also got an apple sitting here that's kind of staring at me. Give me a moment. Nope, it's not centered. So I'm going to make a master of these. Just make a collision group J, and it's gonna be a yellow. And what the master does is that connects directly to the axle, or directly to the shaft, I should say. That allows us to do the binding stuff that I'm talking about. So this is connected to the blue piece. This is collision group E. So we'll make another one of these that is collision group E and J. And we say put this guy on a lever. Like so. Then we can, well, if we actually make everything the right mass and everything first. Boom! Hold on, that might not actually be correct. Just double check it. Yep, we totally have transfer of power in a, let's count here. It's like a 2-to-1 ratio. A little bit less, like 1.5 to 1. And now if we just disconnect this somehow, power stops getting transferred. Just like that. Easy, guys. Auto meshes and synchronizes and everything. I see potential with this having issues when there's a lot of power going through it, so that's a potential issue that I see. We might have to end up making a very simple transmission. It might happen, but if I can get away with something like this and make it visually, mechanically appealing, I'm gonna do it. Jim Bob asks how I play this for 7 years. And the answer is on and off. So for many, many years, I was just barely touching it, just doing little bits at a time. And there were times when it was something that I did a lot of. It was more than just like something I had installed on my computer. It was something I did consistently for months on end. Alright, back to the video. So we have one of these. You can also do one of these. I believe that was for this one. Now I'll make one for this. No. Because every freewheeling, right? Every freewheeling gear needs a clutch like that. So that one's going to be F. So this one's J and F. If we put this one exactly in the same spot as the other, well, for one, they will mingle like that, I guess, which isn't something I'd considered. Well, we can always bring it from the other side. It's always an option. Mirror it. Oh yeah. See right there how it kind of wants to snap off? Well, for one, that's because we're pushing it the wrong way. So that's one of our higher gear ratios. Let's see, it wants to... I think that's one... No, it's definitely a little bit more than 1 to 1. So let's actually analyze this. Go through the powertrain. This is engaging the master, but is also engaging this. Just goes to this blue one. Blue one meshes with the red. Yeah, that makes sense, since the red is fixed. It's fixed on this side. So yeah, like I said, it's a little bit more than a 2 to 1. Yeah, all you have to do to shift is knock these out of engagement like that. And if they're out of engagement, no power is transferred. The moment they engage like that, you get power. Isn't that kind of cool? Sir says hello. Well, hello, sir. This is Stealth the Unknown. Trying to make this a little bit interesting, guys. This honestly, what you see off cam, what you don't get to see, the stuff that happens off camera is often many hours of just tinkering around with shapes like this and doing unphotogenic, unvideogenic fiddling. Just thinking. As for a transmission, I'm still debating. I'm on the fence on whether or not I like this. So I can do a much simpler one, but it's cheap. It's too easy. This is exciting. It gives me a chance to play a little bit. You know, having forks have to move a little back and forth a little bit to actually make a transmission. That's exciting to me. Nightblood VG says hello. Good to have you on the stream, brother. Thanks for joining us. But see, very quickly it gets big. And I'll bring up an image of a motorcycle. Let's bring up a Harley Davidson. Very quickly, that transmission is getting to be too big. Way too big. So for example, let me copy this. Alright, so that's the engine right there. And the transmission is like yay big already. It's just no good. No can do. As much fun as I would have making a mechanism like this, I don't think it's really worth pursuing. Before I delete it though, like let's just take a moment to appreciate this again. This has potential, but you see it lacks reliability because there's a lot for it to break. And let's just face it, the Algodoo gears are kind of clunky. They just don't work well. And it's very difficult using the tools in the program to actually make a functional, proper, smooth involute gear. You know, the mathematics involved, I can sort of comprehend them, but they're a little bit over my head, but it's just not for me. It's not my thing. I don't have the know-how to do that properly yet. So for now, these gears are gonna go. And instead, let's scale this down a little bit to size. We'll just go with a simple transmission. So the simpler alternative to the transmission is just friction circles. And the way we can do that is like yay. So we'll start with a large. A set of large circles. Like a large gear reduction. Just like so. Put a bar between them, a hinge. Make them relatively heavy and infinite friction. So now, they're a lot smoother than toothed gears. They do slip, so they don't work well on mechanisms because they'll eventually slip, and if things need to be in phase perfectly, they don't serve well for that. So, that's our first set. Start simple. With a 4. So that'll be our 1-to-1. It's a little bit, it's a lot of overlap for a 1-to-1. So we'll start doing our overdrives. I could make a slightly smaller ratio for the first gear. I kind of want to leave this as is for now. See, that's 4 ratios. Let's try 5 and see what that gives us. It's definitely a high overdrive. Alright, so what we can actually do, fixate all these together. And what we're going to do is take this, which is our transmission basically, and we'll put this where it's appropriate, which is about right here. Make another bar to connect it. Just to kind of loosely hold it all together. I'm not trying to go for ultra realism anymore because I realize that's going to have a lot to learn if I want to do that. Just trying to make it power, and we'll make something that looks cool and works. Because admittedly a big transmission kind of needs to be. Alright, so that's good. Good place to start. For 5 gears here. I'm trying to think, because we have to select independent gears, right? Fuck. Alright. I'm trying to think of different things we can do here. I could fixate all of these together instead. Just have one clutch. But then the outputs change. Yeah, we'll just do it this way. Yeah, because in the end it ends up being the same anyways. Alright, so what we do is for first gear, we'll make this white. So what I'm doing here is basically making a lateral axle. It's a hinge that can stretch and transmits an infinite brake force, so it acts like it's rigid, but it doesn't want to snap together. Changing just a few variables there. Now if we add this to this, if we throttle it, it has the power to drive it, so that's good. It's a good place to start. Right, we don't want it to break. Fuck. Gotta delete that. So I lied. We don't want it to bend. We just want it to break. So now, if we hit the brake key, for this one is 1, it'll do that. There we go. It's little things like this. Good night. Saying good night to my dad. Now we have it engaged. Right, we want it to toggle. Boom. Now we do the same thing for these next two gears. It's tedious, is what it is. Alright, now we'll give this a test. But one of them's not fixed. Yep. Third gear. Fourth. This is the angular velocity. That's fifth gear. If I take it down to first. I'm going to stand still and idle. Kick it in. Idles at about negative 8 to 9 radians. Full throttles up to about 22. Second gear takes it all the way up to about 30. Third goes up to 40. Fourth goes up to 55. Almost 60 actually. That's fifth gear. It's a little bit more chaotic, it looks like. And that's what happens when I accidentally do two gears at once. One of the things I could do is make a centrifugal clutch so that when I actually rev it up, it wants to engage. Well, for now we have a working transmission. It appears to work. So now I'll save that. Let's see where we at in the stream. 64 minutes. Wow. This has been... It went really fast. Well, thanks guys for watching. I actually have to start going to bed because it's getting late. And I appreciate everybody who hopped on and chatted and participated. I know it's not the most interesting stream. We'll do something more interesting one of these days. If you guys want to leave comments or whatever and let me know your thoughts, just give me ideas. Other things we could do, just let me know. If there's stuff you'd be interested in seeing, we can also do trigger mechanisms or who knows what. Yeah, just leave that stuff down in the comments below and let me know. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching.